Hello and welcome to the November episode of Charging Status, the EV focused podcast brought to you from the Interface. As always, I'm joined by my co-host Jim Starling. How are you doing, Jim?
Not too bad, Alex. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. I've had some interesting cars last few weeks. I hear you're quite busy getting ready to go to the LA Auto Show. I know we talked about it briefly last episode.
Yeah,
So you're quite busy preparing for that.
yeah. There's loads to come at that now as well. Like they've released quite a lot of details now, so I've got a bit more of an idea of what's happening. And then the day after, I think it's the 16th, I'm at the LA Auto Show for the press day, and then the day after, I'm going to the Peterson Museum.
Oh yeah,
which looks absolutely amazing. So I'm looking forward to that. But I know I'm going to see the sort of unveiling, if you like, of the new Lucid SUV, which
right.
looks nuts. I mean, they're talking about it having over 500 miles of range, silly quick charging times and things, and super luxurious. I'm sure it's going to be relatively expensive and probably will never darken our shores, but who knows?
Yeah, we're starting to see some impressively high-performing, high-mileage SUVs, electric cars now. Like 1,000 horsepower, something stupid like that, and then over 500 miles of range. It's just we've come such a long way since like 2013, 2012, that sort of era. So it's crazy. So
something else that's going there that's going to be quite cool, I think, is Robert Downey Jr. did a series where they converted loads of classic cars to EV, and I think they did an episode for 6 episodes. Well, all those 6 cars are going to be there. So that would be really cool, because I think it's a great idea when people, strip the guts out of a Tesla that's been bent around a lamppost or something and chuck it into an old Mustang that's, not doing anyone any favours these days, perhaps.
Yeah, I watched there was a Johnny Smith video probably during lockdown, I think, where he drove an MGB, I think that's what it's called, like an old sports car. Yeah, that was quite interesting as well.
Yeah, a lot of those cars, by sort of modern standards, don't have massively great performance, obviously have a lot of reliability issues and stuff, and there are obviously lots of classic car enthusiasts that think they should always be kept 100% original, and to an extent I agree. But when you've got one where it's baggy and horrible, and the engine's come to the end of its natural life, and it's going to cost X amount to try and keep the thing back on the road, and over here you've got a Tesla that's been wrapped around a flagpole, or a very sad EV that's seen better days in terms of its overall condition. If you can strip the guts out of it and make one great car out of 2 cars, I think it's a great way to go.
Yeah, and people like the look of those things. I saw there's this guy on Twitter, which I think he's from Australia. I'm not sure where he's from, but he's got an old Land Rover that he's driving around at the moment through Norway and stuff. It's electric, and people are loving it when he's charging this stuff. They're asking him, "Oh, what's this? What's that?" So it's an interesting thing to be doing. So definitely. In terms of what I've been driving, I've had a very busy 3 weeks. I think the week just gone. I had a Aura Funky Cat, I think 2 weeks ago now, or a week ago.
Yep.
And then MG5 as well. And then at some point in December, I've got a GV70 coming as well. So those 2 cars were good. The MG5 wasn't quite as good as I expected it to be. I don't know if you saw the software crashed twice. Like I was charging for like over half an hour. The entire screen went off, so I had no idea what it was doing. I had to hold the home button down to sort of reset the system. That happened twice in 1 week, which was a bit worrying.
Did you have the same one I had?
I think they were very similar regged.
Okay. Mine didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't have the software issues
Okay.
on mine. It might just be that one has got an issue. It's a bit of a dog, but it could be just a common issue that didn't crop up in the couple hundred miles that I drove that one for. But I did have that happen on the MG4 when I had that, and that was obviously a long time ago.
Yeah.
So it may just be a general MG gremlin kind of thing, but you'd think if it's been going on for that long, firmware updates, anyone?
Yeah, possibly.
Please?
Yeah. But other than that, the range was good. It didn't charge quite as quickly as I thought it would. But it's relatively comfortable. Massive boot, like you could fit a lot of stuff in there. I do a good test lift, see if I can fit my tripod fully extended in the back of the boot. I know it's good, so it's a good one. Then
Hmm.
the Subaru did that,
Hmm.
and then they had the Aura Funky Cat. The MG5 didn't work on Tesla superchargers. So I plugged it in on one of the ones that I know is open for third parties. Nothing. I rang Tesla. They said, "Oh yeah, MGs don't work on them." I was like, "Oh okay." Um,
I think that's great because I want them reserved for Tesla owners.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the Aura Funky Cat, I had that for a week. I did quite a lot of miles in that actually. That was quite good. It's I think it's 90% there in terms of what it's offering. I drove it down to Bristol, so it's about a 60-mile journey for me, and it lost a lot of range. This was when it was relatively cold outside. It wasn't as cold as it is
Hmm.
now. It just dropped a lot of range very quickly. I had to pull
Hmm.
into one of the services and give it a quick charge, but that's a little bit worrying. And then that one did work with the Tesla superchargers, but
Hmm.
the car is supposed to charge at 64 kilowatt, and I never saw above 50, even if it was on like
Hmm.
3% battery. I'm sure it's just the heat management of the battery is not quite up to snuff.
Has it got a
So
heat pump or
don't think so. No.
no? No, they said. I mean, that does make a massive difference,
Mm.
doesn't it? Did the most important thing with the Funky Cat? Did you get a little bit of lock on it and then floor it
Yeah.
at any point?
Yeah. Yeah.
And did you immediately smell burning rubber?
Yeah. Yeah. Happened quite a
Yeah,
lot. It even
it's quite
happened.
impressive, isn't it?
I know it's amazing. It
But
even happened.
the sound as well. Like you get no indication that you've got a wheel spin. Like I could not feel a wheel spin. I just
No.
heard this sort of like this, and then the stench of burning rubber in the cockpit, and I thought
Yeah.
I may have just destroyed a set of tires.
Yeah. They seemed alright though. I'd imagine how often it did it for me that other people have been doing that as well because it did it a bit too easily.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
even out of a roundabout,
They need to.
just the little bit of poke out of a roundabout just did it as well, which was a bit weird. But
Yeah, they need to sort out that sort of torque vector somehow with. I'm sure they can do it with software.
Mhm.
Um, but it's surprising just how well put together that car is, isn't it? You see, like all
oh yeah,
GWM Aura Funky Cat, what? And it's a bit of an
yep,
odd looking thing, and then you get inside, and the interior is really quite nice, um, and it's not just a copy of something else. I mean, they've got the crazy thing with the fish on the screen and everything, and
mm,
I mean, it's really quite different, isn't it?
yeah. I found it very charming.
Mm,
Like some of the, so when I have a car, and obviously me and my girlfriend go out together, and she was quite taken aback by some of the interior of that car. She thought it was really nice.
mm,
The only thing I found wrong with that car was the software on it. Really,
yeah,
it's the software.
yeah,
That's why I say it was 90% there. If the software was sort of a bit honed, everything else, like the look of it, brilliant. The interior quality, brilliant. Sort of the feel of the steering. I know me and you are quite a bit anal about steering wheels, but the thin steering wheel
yeah.
just made it feel so luxury. I just yeah, that's why I said it's 90% there.
Mm.
It's nearly there. Just the lack of CarPlay, which apparently is coming very soon, and some of the little bits and pieces. But other than that, great. So
This is the sort of kind of men around town we are. A couple of geezers. Me and Alex get together and talk about steering wheels.
oh yeah,
So
what's the girth of
yeah.
your steering wheel? That's what we talk about usually.
Ooh. Matron. Uh, yeah. But yeah, I was really, really surprised by the Funky Cat. I'd like a little bit more boot space in it because I feel like in the rear you've almost got too much legroom for a car of its size. There's loads of legroom in the back
Hmm.
for that size car, and then quite a small boot. And I feel like they could have maybe given you an extra 50 litres of boot space and still have loads of room in the back.
And I thought the charging cables took up way too much space. There wasn't enough. There's nothing underneath
Yeah.
the false floor to put anything in. There's a little bit of
Mm,
polystyrene stuff, but that wasn't big enough to put anything in there. But could have done with a bit
mm.
of a frunk.
Yeah. It's amazing how many EVs don't have a frunk. And when you sort of open the bonnet, you can see that
Hmm.
there's plenty of room for one, even quite a small one sometimes. And it just makes you wonder why.
I don't know. Maybe cost. Like,
Mm,
but I don't
yeah.
know. I'm not sure what it is.
You think on a 35 grand car, maybe 50 quid cost of bit of plastic. I know
Yeah,
they've got to tool to make it, but once that's done,
I know.
surely everything pays for itself fairly quickly.
Yeah.
Some of the corner cutting and cost cutting on cars, I just find amazing at times. You think the difference between a really good one of these and a really crap one of these is like
Hmm.
13p, and
Yeah.
they choose to save the 13p.
Quite a few cars I've driven recently which they're like that, but then two I've driven recently are not like that at all. Like the Genesis GV60, that was like, to me,
Oh.
that was a amazing car. So
When you get the GV70,
yeah.
it will be like a quantum leap of difference. Like the quality in the
Mm.
GV70 is so much nicer than in the GV60. So the GV60 was the last Genesis car I had. I had all
Yep.
of them first, and then got a GV60, and it felt like a step down.
Oh right.
Um,
So I can't imagine what
even
that's
as
like.
Yeah, as good as that is, it felt like a slight sort of backward step from some of the others.
All right.
But the GV70 is amazing, like lovely, lovely thing.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to that. That'll be good. I just want a
Spoiler
very quick
alert.
short update on your Model Y. So
Mm.
you had that for about a month or two now.
Yes, I
I
got it.
can't.
When was it? Start of September. I got it. So a couple of
Yeah.
months. Probably done 1,500 miles in it now.
Okay.
And so nothing crazy. We don't do sort of huge mileage. Obviously, I work from home. Um,
Hmm.
my wife walks to work most days. So we haven't done crazy mileage in it, but it's just been so easy so far. I mean, I'm driving it up to Heathrow on Wednesday, um, and yeah, it's just a lovely thing, really. Um, really enjoying our time with it. No sort of niggles with it as such. Just, I mean, I did a video which is a bit clickbaity. So it's things I
Yeah, just
hate
a bit.
about my Tesla Model Y, and there are a couple, like the fact it hasn't got a rear wiper, which lots of
Mm.
people in the comments have told me that I'm an absolute moron because I shouldn't want a rear wiper, and you can put Rain-X on the rear screen and blah blah blah. But
Mm.
funnily enough, I know my own mind better than some of those people in the comments. And yes, I want a rear wiper on every car that I get into,
Yeah.
but it's becoming a bit of a sort of I don't know, it's like some sort of luxury item now. If you're getting a car that's got a rear wiper, it's ooh,
Yeah.
I can see out of the back screen. Wow. Um, so that's a bit of an annoyance. The parcel shelf's really, really annoying. It's just a bad piece of design.
Mm.
Although it's massively solid and probably the strongest parcel shelf I've ever seen in any car. It's just a bad design. But aside from that, it's been great. And I've actually got a few bits have been sent to me to do a couple of little upgrades. So I've obviously got the bog standard Tesla Model Y, which comes with the sort of silver and black wheel trims over the alloys.
Mm.
And I've got a white one, all the chrome's blacked out. So I like black wheels on a car. I know, again, a lot of people don't, but I do. So I've got some black wheel trims for it. So I'm going to stick those on. That'll be a video. And also, because the paint's quite thin on Tesla Model Y, I've noticed
Hmm.
on a lot of them, the wing mirrors get battered with stone chips and things. That
Oh
seems to be
really?
a common area where stone chips get through the paint. So I've actually got some sort of matte carbon fiber covers to go over the wing
Mm.
mirrors as well. So
Might
um,
be quite nice.
but yeah, it's just such an easy thing to live with. I'm using the Octopus Intelligent, and I'll plug it in tonight, for example. It will go on to charge for like 30 seconds, and then it will sort out a plan. I'll just say I want it at, say, 100% at 7:30 in the morning, and it will work out a plan just to charge it at the cheapest times only. It'll cost about £6.
Yeah,
So
it's incredible, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah, it's not too bad. And I really, really don't miss going into petrol stations at all.
I can see that. Yeah.
I mean, I am lucky having a charger at home. It means I don't have to public charge very often. I probably will on the way to Heathrow just because the car's going to be sat for a week. It might lose a little bit of range. And after a 12-hour flight coming home, I'm not going to want to stop and charge the car on the way back. So I might
No.
stop at Fleet. I live in Bournemouth. Might stop at Fleet Services. There's a load of Tesla chargers there. Maybe just top it up. while we go in and grab a coffee or something. It's incredibly quick to charge on one of those usually. So just as a little bit of a safety net. But yeah, I've used it on a public charger twice, I think, so far for about 10 minutes each time.
Yeah, I've used a Tesla supercharger once on a Tesla. I had one for a test drive a few months ago. Just like plug it in, that's it. It's easy. Speaking of that, with Octopus, last few weeks and months with the EVs I've had on for press loans, I've been using the Octopus Electroverse card. I don't know if you've seen that.
No, I haven't.
You probably haven't. It's like an RFID card and an app. But what it does is it's just like I guess there's other ones like it, All Star, I think, but it's somehow
like a fuel card kind of thing.
Yeah. So they partner with Instavolt literally just recently. I think Shell, Mer, which is at some garden centres and stuff. But it's somehow they seem to get a cheaper rate at some places, like Osprey, which are at Audi, I think. Between certain hours, they manage to negotiate a 20p discount. But this card's free. I don't understand it. And there seems to be some glitch with Instavolt chargers. Instavolt's supposed to be 85p, and for some reason I only get charged 66p with the Octopus card. It doesn't even say anywhere it's going to be 66p. I don't know how they do it, but
that's great.
I probably shouldn't have said that. It's probably going to get removed now. But if you haven't got a Tesla, that seems to me to make life a lot easier, because the Instavolt app is a hot piece of garbage. Logs you out every time, and this is just card done, plug in, done. I haven't had any problems with it. So if you haven't got a Tesla, definitely check out that Octopus Electroverse app. Yeah, if you have got Octopus at home like you have, you get some discount or some billing simplification on your energy tariff or something along those lines. I haven't really looked into it, but yeah, it looks really good.
I guess they just bill your home energy account or something.
Yeah, I think so. You get some sort of discount with that.
Do it that way.
Yeah, I'd imagine the discount is to do with the credit card fees. They wouldn't have to charge you every time and get penalised every. Yeah, that's probably quite good actually. Yeah.
And I guess they get kind of some sort of wholesale, I don't know, almost like a bulk buy discount. So I guess they're passing some of that on to you. But yeah, life with the Tesla anyway, getting back to that, has been great.
Thanks to everyone who has been listening to this podcast. Me and Jim look forward to coming back every month to provide our takes on the latest EV updates. We'd really, really appreciate it if you could review this show in the podcast app you're listening in, be it Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anything else. If you happen to be watching our gorgeous face on YouTube, make sure to leave a comment and hit that like button. It really helps other people find this show. Without further ado, let's get back to the EV news. First bit of news.
Seamless.
Yeah, seamless. The first bit of news actually is hot off the press this morning. Everyone on Twitter has been talking about it. You probably haven't had a chance to see it just yet. Over in America, it seems a bit of an odd decision. Well, I suppose it seems like quite a good decision, because most chargers that aren't Tesla seem to not be very reliable. But over in America, BP have purchased like $150 million worth of off-brand Tesla superchargers. So there'll be Tesla supercharger V4s, but branded like BP. So instead of outsourcing and purchasing other manufacturers' chargers that don't always work, they just have Tesla chargers that would be on the BP Pulse network. Here in the UK, the EG Group, so they own literally everything. They own Asda, they own a lot of petrol stations in the UK, they own like Leon and other bits. They've announced they're going to acquire Tesla ultra-fast chargers for the UK, and they've got some lofty goals. So they've got more than 600 chargers right now across 189 sites. They have an ambition to, with EV Point, the brand they're going to use for sort of rebranding the Tesla chargers for their own use, they want to have 20,000 chargers across 3,600 sites they've got. So that's a massive goal as well, which is really good, and hopefully they'll be a lot more reliable, because the V4 chargers are pretty reliable for what I've heard.
I think the biggest problem they'll probably face in the UK is getting planning permission to put them all in. I mean, I don't know how long. There was a massive bank of Tesla chargers at Fleet Services that were there for literally years, ready to go, all connected and everything, and they were just waiting for planning permission, from what I was told.
Weird.
And I know even our Tesla dealership up the road from me, just around the corner from me, they want to put superchargers in, and the council won't let them. They've said you can't have planning permission. And that's Tesla themselves, with a dealership. And you'd sort of think, well, it's part of it's also a service centre, so it's kind of part of the MO of their business for people to be able to go and use Tesla services. and they can't get planning permission for it from again what I've been told. So
Mm,
yeah, I think something needs to be done around that because a lot of people are crying out for infrastructure, and certainly in some areas of the country more than others, and
mm.
local councils seem to be putting the kibosh on it. I don't really understand why.
Yeah, there probably needs to be
Yeah,
some sort of priorities change somewhere, or some message sent
I
down
dare
from
say a big,
government, possibly.
a,
So
yeah, maybe a big group that owns lots and lots of businesses has got enough money to grease the correct palms to get these things dealt
yeah,
with. But I'm suggesting any kind of local government corruption exists, of course.
no, no, of course not. That's really good news. There's a number of chargers which just um, don't work, and Tesla know what they're doing, and they are. You might look at them like they're a new sort of company, but as you said, with your car, it works really well. The Tesla superchargers work really well, so it can only be good news for both sides, really. I'm not sure how it'll work with
Mm,
pricing. I guess EG Group just set their own pricing for it, but
yeah,
yeah, hopefully. So that's across. See, hopefully that'll be across Asda locations because those supermarkets don't really have any chargers at all, really. And then the
no,
EG Group petrol stations, which there's tons of those around. So yeah, hopefully in the next few years we'll start to see some fruition from this deal.
yes. I mean, it sounds really good, doesn't it,
Yep.
on paper? So
Yeah.
fingers crossed.
Awesome. This next story was announced about a month ago now, so it was just after we published the last episode. This is the new Citroen EC3. So the C3 is one of Citroen's most popular cars, I think. A little
Hmm.
hatchback, and it's going to get reinvented when it goes on sale next year. It's going to be sort of a crossover kind of thing. But
Yeah.
the headline story is that it's going to be £22,000 with 199 miles of range, which is
Mm,
just it's exactly what the market needs, just at the right time, really.
yeah.
So yeah, I was quite excited when they announced this, and judging by some of the videos I've seen online, I think Electrifying did a really, really good video. It looks really good quality inside as well, and some nice little nods back to other cars and some nice bits of humour in it. So I quite like that. It's quite a good idea.
Yeah, it looks really nice,
Hmm.
doesn't it? And as you said, it's what the market's been calling out for, and it's good to see like a very trad company putting this out there rather than some new sort of disruptor from China or something. It's a very traditional car manufacturer, and they're coming out with something and saying, "Look, it can be done. Here it is." And hopefully, it sets cat amongst the pigeons a bit. Obviously, there's more and more rumor about this Tesla Model 2 coming out for possibly 22, 23 grand. But that's surely going to be a few years away. Um, but yeah, I think it's fantastic news, and hopefully others follow suit.
And there's also going to be a model that's going to be £17,000. That's converted from euros, with likely a little bit less range. I'd imagine probably 120 miles of range or something like that. There's been no figures announced for that one yet. So not that the Chinese manufacturers aren't producing good cars. It's the fact that a lot of people in this country don't really trust them as much. And if a
Mhm.
company like Citroen brought something to market, they're more likely to buy it. I think that's the general consensus. So
The thing I sometimes see in comments of videos and things are um, people think of French cars and electrical issues, and they're like, "Oh, I don't want to buy an electric car from one of those because all they have is electrical issues." And you sort of think, well, times have changed.
mm,
French cars are quite a lot better than they used to be in quite a lot of ways. But secondly, we're talking about an electric drivetrain, not necessarily, oh, my rear demister doesn't work anymore
mm,
randomly, or when I put the headlights on, the windscreen wipers go,
yeah.
or every time I brake, the indicator flashes. So it's a very, very different thing. And obviously now they're Stellantis Group. I mean, they're absolutely ginormous as a group. A very, very much a worldwide company. Yeah, hopefully it's sort of the pioneer for the cheap EV that's not a bit of a joke.
One of the videos I was watching, somebody made a really, really good point. To think that how have Stellantis Group done this? Because at the moment, the Jeep Avenger and the Corsa are like ridiculously priced, like over 35 grand for both of those. So
Mm,
what gives what how can a company within the same group do that? Does this
mm.
mean that there'll be some other Vauxhall products that are going to be this sort of price point, or I don't know what it means, but it just doesn't make any sense looking at it. I think how they're doing it, but
No, it doesn't at all. And You can only sort of think that they've either developed their manufacturing processes and possibly their supply chain, possibly on the back of having a record of sales now. Maybe they can
Mm.
go out to partners and prove that they're going to shift this number of EVs, and they can maybe use economies of scale to their advantage. It could be that they were absolutely shafting people with their pricing up until now, and they've realised that they don't sell cars without huge discounts, and they don't sell cars without, incredible finance deals and huge discounts. And then half the time they don't sell them anyway, so they're going to just sell them at a sensible price. But it could even be a mixture of those things. That's probably the most likely. Is it's a mixture of all of it.
But yeah, it's good news. It hopefully will start to for new cars at least, because a lot of people don't want to buy used cars sometimes. It was sort of for leasing and that sort of thing. So it'd be good to get this sort of car on the market. So that's going to be on sale next year, and then the cheap one will be in 2025. So all good. Next story is that the Cybertruck is finally going to start being delivered to customers later this month on November 30th. I don't think it's going to come to the UK just yet, or at all. If it does come to the UK, it'll probably be left-hand drive only, like the Model S and Model X. But
Yeah,
there's a lot of talk about this on Twitter and interesting things said about it. But I personally think this will probably sell quite well in America, just because it is what it is, and it's a Tesla underneath. So
yeah, and I mean trucks
Yep.
sell massive numbers, don't they, over there?
Yeah.
I know there've been quite a few driving around in LA, like
Test ones, yeah.
the sort of release candidates they call them, don't they? So I'm hoping to spot one when I'm there, and I will spot one at the Peterson Museum because I know there's one in there.
Ah,
But I mean, they just look bonkers, don't
they
they?
do.
And I'd love to see one out in the wild. That's for sure.
Yeah, if you've ordered one, you can get one on November 30th. There's been some weird clauses with it. So when the Ford F-150 Lightning came out, there was a weird clause saying you couldn't sell it within 2 years. They're doing the same with the Cybertruck, and people are saying, I'm not too sure they're going to police it. Apparently you could get sued 50 grand if you sell it within 2 years or something along those lines. But there's obviously going to be, that obviously hints at some demand for it. If there's going to be like a black market for it afterwards, there's obviously going to be a lot of want and demand for that sort of thing. So yeah, quite good. It's been delayed a lot, so it's good to see it finally coming to fruition. So we'll see what it's like. The next one is Toyota are switching away from hydrogen, and they're going to leave the hydrogen focus to commercial vehicles instead. So Toyota have admitted that the Mirai was not successful, essentially. It's like a 50 grand saloon car that looks like another Lexus model, I think. And in the UK, there aren't many hydrogen filling stations. I think that was one of the main problems, and also the focus on EVs has sort of possibly shifted it elsewhere. But yeah, it's a bit of a interesting topic when you bring up hydrogen to other people. What do you make of this? Did you think hydrogen is going to be, or do you think hydrogen is going to be a good alternative for different things? Or
I could see it being used for certain types of commercial transport.
Yep.
But I think it makes absolutely no sense at all whatsoever for cars.
Yep.
And it's one of those things where, like, the bloke down the pub says, "A little electric cars are a load of rubbish. Hydrogen's what we need," and all they know is that to fill up a hydrogen car, instead of plugging it in for half an hour, you go basically into a petrol station for all intents and purposes.
Yep.
Plug in something into the filler, and 3 minutes later you leave with a full tank.
Yep.
However, they're about 6 times less efficient than using a battery EV, because essentially you use loads and loads of electricity to produce hydrogen. You then have to put that hydrogen into a car, and it's incredibly difficult and costly to transport the hydrogen. Then when you put it into the car has to convert the hydrogen back to electricity. So the wastage along the way is immense. And they're still driving an electric car. This is the thing most people don't know. A hydrogen car is an electric car. It's just using a hydrogen fuel cell rather than a battery. And just the fact that if you look how much electricity is actually being used and lost, what on earth is that going to cost you to run when that becomes a commercial venture? Because at the moment it's not, is it? It's been played out a bit.
No.
You know, I know a lot of buses are running on it, and that works really well, and you can see how that works really well. and I can see it being used in things where weight is much more of an issue. So there certainly will be areas where I think hydrogen will be brilliant and it will be the best way to go. But for cars, nope. Not that I've got any
Yeah.
strong opinions on it, of course.
I again, I can't remember this like where I saw it, but there was something along the lines of there was a city somewhere that ordered hydrogen buses, and then they just cancelled the order instead, and they were going to get BYD buses instead, electric buses. So because they realised that it wasn't going to be the best solution for it. And I went to London a few weeks ago with the GV60, and I saw tons of BYD electric buses. I was shocked. I hadn't been to London for ages before that. But the amount of electric buses in London was just insane. So, but yeah, just jumping back to this. Yeah, I think in certain situations, as you're right, like in quarries and things. I've got like an Australian quarry in my mind, like where there's literally not going to be any electrical infrastructure around it, but they could possibly drive somewhere, fill it with hydrogen, and come back again, or have a lorry on site with it. In those certain situations, probably the trade-off is probably worth it. But yeah, you're right. In terms of passenger vehicles, it's not. It's just such a waste of energy. Like we all remember at school, we did like sort of if you put energy into something, it's going to lose some and then come out again. It's just
Yeah.
So
And when you're having to do that twice,
yeah,
and use a load of energy to transport it,
it's not great. And as we're going to move towards faster and faster charging, like 350 kilowatt plus, like on the Hyundai and Genesis vehicles, you can charge up in 15 minutes. And once that becomes everywhere, which is what people tend to forget, they tend to look at everything as it is right now. They don't tend to have a good view on what it could be. In terms of,
and people still think of a car running down to empty and then filling it up again. And my thing is always much more important than the range of the car is the range of your bladder. How long can you drive for without stopping for a wee, essentially?
Yep.
Because, I mean, on Wednesday, when I drive up to Heathrow, probably by the time we get to Fleet Services, the battery will be at 70-something% or 80%. Obviously, it's not even charging quickly if it's still above 80.
Yep.
I'd imagine it'll be about 80. We'll probably go in, grab a coffee, have a wee, wash our hands because we're clean like that, and then return to the car. And we've probably in 10 minutes put 60, 70 miles into it. When I took that long range up to Scotland last year, with that we did 1,100 miles, and the only time we stopped to charge when we didn't just naturally stop. So it was one time we actually stopped to charge where we didn't need a drink, we didn't need to go to the toilet, anything else. It put 25 minutes on an 1,100 mile journey, and we didn't charge overnight once. It wasn't difficult. We didn't wait for a charger once. The chargers worked. Obviously, we had a Tesla, and we had the Tesla infrastructure, which was great. So it was a bit of a cheat, you could say, in some ways. But yeah, it's just not an issue. You just stop, stick another 100 miles in, off you go.
Until you use it, and then, well, what you could do is if you've got a petrol car right now, just go on your watch or phone and just as soon as you get out of the car, start a timer, and when you get back, you'd be surprised how long you spend in motorway services, sort of queuing, just taking a piss and that sort of thing. So it just takes a while. Even shopping as well. Like if there's a charge at your local supermarket, you might think, well, why do I need that? I'm only going shopping for like 15 minutes. But time it, plug in, and you'll be surprised how long you spend in there. When I had one of the cars the other week, I plugged in, and it added a surprising amount of range. I just plugged it in to see how fast it would charge up, and it was like, wow, I added quite a bit of range in like 15 minutes. So yeah, it's surprising. Cool. Got some more Tesla news. It's a bit of a Tesla podcast this month. Sorry.
It is.
So with the new Model 3, which it's growing on me. It looked a bit odd when I first looked at it, like whenever it's announced. I really like the look of this now. They've said in Europe alone they've hit 1 million pre-sales or pre-orders for the new car, and it goes on sale in the UK in January, so a few months' time, from just under £40,000. That is just incredible. In the space of like a month or just over a month, they've already had a million pre-orders for it.
It's insane, isn't it?
Yeah, crazy. To see how far Tesla have come.
But when you look at what that car's given you for essentially £4 grand more than a Corsa E. I mean,
Well, yeah.
that's not really a fair statement to make because the Corsa E is just a stupid price.
Yep.
But there are so many really bang average cars, like one we're going to talk about in a minute, that are 40 grand. And you think, well, that new Tesla Model 3 absolutely wipes the floor with pretty much all of them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's got a massive amount of range, like 344 miles of range, which is just incredible. Massively high charging speeds, and it says here like it was £3,000 less than the old Model 3, which I remember you made a video or made a comment somewhere about it. You were saying, oh, once Tesla bring out a new Model 3 and drop the price, it was going to ruin the used market or make everything really cheap again. I was like, maybe not. I was a little bit skeptical, but like, yeah, it's proven. And I looked at the Tesla Model 3 on Auto Trader last night, and there's a bunch for like 18 grand that have done a few miles on them, but they're not that old.
Yeah.
They've done tons, and they're like under 20 grand. It's just insane. So yeah, this will be good. I'd imagine within a few months of this coming out in January, I'll start to see tons on the road already. People trading in their old ones and selling them and stuff. So yeah, looks really good, and it's just amazing that they've sold 1 million. So
on Sunday, I've got another sort of used EV video coming out.
Yep.
And the one I think that surprised me the most is the Audi e-tron. Now, I was always a little bit kind of let down by the fact that you had 200 miles of range in such a premium car. It was a £75,000 car, the e-tron 55 Quattro. You can get one now for 24 grand.
Yeah, it's just
like a 3-year-old one with very little mileage on it, £24,000.
That always baffles me when we talk about these cars that have lost so much value. It's like I struggle to comprehend on who is someone out there has lost so much money on that car.
I think what we're seeing at the moment is sort of, it's almost a perfect storm whereby they have depreciated a lot, but I think they've depreciated a lot mainly because, well, I've said from the start, the technology is going to move on at such a rapid pace that it'd almost be like, well, do you want to go out and buy an iPhone 11 today?
Yeah.
When you can have the iPhone 15. Some people will, but not that many. Therefore, it'll have to be a bit cheaper. But also, you had loads and loads. I mean, most company car drivers just went into an electric vehicle. A lot of them didn't want an electric vehicle, but it's going to save them maybe £4,000 a year, maybe £8,000 a year in tax, maybe £12,000 a year in tax by going into an electric vehicle. And a lot of their employers said, "Oh, we're going to be green now. You have to drive an electric vehicle." So what you had is several 100,000 people essentially being forced into an electric car, and then 2 years, 3 years on, all those leases come to an end, and all that's available on the market. And it's sort of like artificial demand sold all those cars, and they're now available on the used market, and dealers haven't been able to shift them. But that is starting to change. I know last month was the best month ever for used EV sales.
I did see that, yeah.
Dealers are now starting to take them in part exchange again because they weren't for a while. A lot of them, certainly a lot of the big groups were saying we're just not taking EVs at the moment, or we'll only take a Tesla or something. But from what I'm hearing, that's all changing again now, and EVs are starting to shift. But it sort of shows that they're selling now because they're at the right price.
Yeah, 100%. There's like a ton. I see a lot of Renault Zoes out there, and they're like 10 grand now. I'm seeing quite a few of those on the road. So yeah, it's going to be a good thing for getting people into the EV space and sort of seeing what they're like to use.
You can get one of the old Zoes for like £5 now.
I saw one for £3 on Auto Trader. Yeah, crazy.
When you can get a Fiat 500e for £5, I'm in.
Yep.
Like I'll have one as a second car. Like
I love those. They're good.
Yeah, £5. So keep them peeled.
The next thing we're going to look at is the Polestar 5. This was announced a few days ago alongside some other new Polestar vehicles as well. This one's going to be a rival for the Porsche Taycan, and it's got a brand new battery technology. It's going to have it says 5 minutes to charge up 100 miles, which is just incredible. 800 volt architecture like the Genesis vehicles. But yeah, this looks really good. So it'll go on sale in 2025. Just yeah, really stylish looking thing, really sort of swoopy, and it's not an SUV, which is good. But yeah, it's what do you think about this?
It looks awesome. I absolutely love the look of
Mm.
it. To me, it looks a bit like a 90s JDM car. That could easily be, I don't know, like a sort of 90s Mitsubishi or
Oh yeah,
Toyota
I can see
when
that.
Toyota did those kind of things. I think it's really, really cool. But it still looks, it doesn't look retro in any way. But it's just an interesting bit of design. It's not an SUV.
Yep.
I could see a lot of people that currently drive a 5 Series or a 7 Series or something like that thinking, whoa, I fancy one of those. And it looks like that kind of car that could be a motorway mile muncher 1 minute and your fun Sunday car the next.
Oh yeah.
It looks like a lovely thing. And I mean, the build quality in Polestars is superb. The only thing that is happening with them at the moment is the price tags seem to be going north in
Oh really?
quite a big way. Apart from the Polestar
Yeah.
2 that's going to feature in my video on Sunday, that I found very cheap.
Yeah, it's gonna have 4-wheel drive, over 800 horsepower, nearly 900 horsepower, which is just bonkers. Yeah, as I said, 800-volt architecture. There's no word on charging speeds just yet, but the fact that it can add 100 miles in 5 minutes, it's going to be quite fruity. But yeah, I've never driven a Polestar just yet. I'd like to at some point, because I've heard they're quite good. But yeah, they've also got the Polestar 4 as well, sort of a SUV type of vehicle, with no rear window. They had this.
Mhm.
This has come from a Polestar day they had in Los Angeles a few days ago. So, sort of like a
Mhm.
media event just for Polestar, which is quite cool. But yeah, they're onto good
Mhm.
things. It's a bit of a departure from the EX30 that was announced, or there was some media drives the other day. So from Volvo. So yeah, pretty good.
Yeah, loving it.
Yeah, that's all the long news out of the way. Get through the lightning round. So the next one, as you mentioned, was the Peugeot E308, and yeah, just as I mentioned with the Citroen EC3, the rest of the Stellantis group is on another level in terms of the prices they're doing. So this is going to be an Astra rival. It's basically the same price as an Astra. There's 250 quid in it, but to me, 40 grand for a Peugeot is just a bit. I just wouldn't even touch it.
That's it. You can have and the 308 has always been one of the worst cars for depreciation. Like the petrol and diesel ones were absolute poo. I mean, you'd buy one for 30 grand, and after 2 years, it'd be worth like 11. And I mean, still now, I mean, you look at a Peugeot 308, you can buy a 3-year-old one for sub 10 grand, and I just don't know why, even as a company car or anything else. It's the same price as a Tesla Model 3.
Yep.
And I know not
It's-
everyone loves a Tesla, but why on earth would you take that over a Tesla Model 3?
Yeah, in terms of the stuff you're getting, so this hasn't really got a massive battery. It's like a 54 kilowatt hour battery pack, which isn't massive by today's standards. 260 miles of range, which if Vauxhall and Peugeot's reputation is to go by, that's going to be next to nothing in the winter, because apparently the Vauxhall Corsa
Yeah, it would be
doesn't
like
do that well in
12.
the winter. Yeah. They're estimating 4.8 miles per kilowatt hour here, and then 100 kilowatt charging, which 100 is at least that is the good minimum. It's not as fast as a Model 3, obviously, but at least it isn't below 100. But over 40 grand for that is just, as we mentioned, the new Model 3 is actually cheaper than I know. So
Even the fast charging time, where other brands quote 10 to 80%,
yep,
they're quoting 20 to 80% just to try and make the number look lower.
yeah, because people might overlook that and just read, oh, it does something to 100% in like X amount of minutes. So yeah,
I think it's bang average, and to me that should be certainly sub 30.
yeah.
Or you just think, well, no one's buying one.
I think they're going to find out at some point that it isn't quite working, and they're either going to claim, like other manufacturers have, that EVs aren't the future. Other manufacturers have said that. They said, well, our cars don't sell very well, so EVs aren't going to be a good option.
Yeah.
They're going to claim that.
Or is it that you're producing a shit car for too much money?
Yeah. I think so.
Maybe.
Mustang Mach-E's had a recent price cut. Ford have said that this is a promotional price. There isn't a date on when this could go back up again, though, so it might be permanent. Sort of Ford are following in the lead of Tesla a little bit. The way they sell their vehicles is sort of via agencies, the
Yep.
dealers they've got. Yeah, they're following the little footsteps of Tesla a little bit. But they raised the price of the Mach-E back in 2022 by £7,700, and then in late October they dropped it by £7,000. So the Mustang Mach-E is now 43, just under £44,000. It is cheaper than it's cheaper than the current entry level Tesla Model 3. It's not going to be cheaper than the new Tesla Model 3, so Ford might drop it again. But yeah, I've never driven one of these. I meant to drive one at the recent drive day we did together, but I didn't get around to doing it. But you've said these aren't the most amazing cars to drive, but we'll see what. I see a few of them on the road, but not many though.
Yeah, I personally just don't like to drive them.
Yeah.
Having said that, it's a long while since I drove one, and a lot of the issues with it they could have solved with firmware upgrades, and I know that Ford are doing quite regular software upgrades to the car.
Yep.
So it may be better, but essentially the accelerator was an on-off switch a bit, and you just had this really jerky, horrible driving experience. And if you're moving through slow traffic, just really not very nice. And I didn't think the car felt special enough in any way to warrant anything like the price tag it had. It was one I was really looking forward to driving. I was sort of really expecting to be impressed, and it was quite the opposite. I was just really disappointed by it. But as I said, it's a long time ago, so maybe things have changed.
So hopefully at one point I'll be able to drive one of those. But they do look good. I think the GT one looks really cool. The body kit, the yellow paint, the red brake calipers. But apart from that, it looks nice. So and then in terms of sort of hot hatch, sort of hot performance electric cars, we've got the Ioniq 5N. This was previewed in the summer, and they've released the pricing for it. And the pricing, when it compared to other vehicles, it isn't too bad. It's $65,000, and I forgot how much power this thing's got. It's 641 brake horsepower, and then like the GV60, if you put it into a boost mode, I think you get nearly 700. You get 600 horsepower as standard, and then you get 641 when you use the boost mode, the Grin boost mode. This looks amazing. I haven't driven any Hyundai cars apart from an i10, but this is going to be, if it's like the Genesis GV60 in boost mode, this is going to be absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it's got. I think they've really made it as probably a motorsport car, really, because it's got drift mode, isn't it? And I guess because drifting's quite a big thing now as a motorsport, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
And I don't know if they're trying to sort of go into that area a bit. They're definitely with their end cars, they're trying to appeal to those fans of the sort of JDM stuff of old and that sort of tuner type market. And so far, I mean, I was a fan of that kind of stuff, and every time I've got into an end car, I've been blown away by the thing. So I've got no doubt this is going to be really quite special, and hope I get some wheel time with one, because I'd love to.
Yeah, the interior to me looks amazing. It's such a massive departure from sort of the calm, serene, like therapist's office of the Ioniq 5. That just looks so cool. The interior, so, and then I've watched some videos on it. There's some engine noises and things, and fake gear shifts. I'm not sure how that'll work, but good combination. I know it's expensive, $65,000, but compared to other stuff like the Porsche Taycan, this is probably quicker than that. Good price, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, look at what you pay for an M3 nowadays.
Oh yeah, like $100,000 for the touring version.
Yeah.
A few episodes ago, I drove the Honda E, made a video on that, and then we talked about it in one of the episodes. I was a bit sad because Honda basically said there's not going to be a new one. But they released a concept car called the Sustainia C. It's going to have a little electric version of the Moto. Is it called the Honda Moto Compo or something? It came with the original Civic back in when you were 3 or something. This is like the sort of return to
when I was 3.
The return to the Honda E. So hopefully this is going to be Honda's going to have a sort of refocus on little electric cars again. Because I was really upset that they sort of said, "Oh, we're not going to bother with this now," and then their new stuff doesn't look quite as good as that anymore. But hopefully, as I said, this will come out. So it looks very similar to the Honda E, doesn't it?
Yeah, I actually prefer the look of the Honda E still over that.
They said rounded headlights. There's a little, not sure what the little blue thing on the bonnet is. Maybe a solar panel. Not particularly sure. But concept cars never look like the original Honda E concept. Looks like a sort of 80s sort of hot hatch, but and it looked quite calm and quite friendly in comparison. So the Honda E had a very small 35 kilowatt battery pack. This hopefully will go a bit further. They're saying with 137 miles of range on the Honda E, which in reality was 100. But there's not much information on it. But hopefully we'll see some electric cars because there's too much focus on electric SUVs at the moment. So
yeah, definitely.
Yep.
Yeah, and I mean, small cars for most people, especially with EVs. I mean, most people are doing short commutes and stuff. Certainly, if you're a 2-car household, we need more small, good EVs. 100%.
I'm going to talk a little bit about Stellantis' new vans. So Stellantis are getting quite bullish on becoming a proper competitor to Ford. They want to take on Ford and become the best-selling van company in the UK because Ford have had that title since the 90s, I think. So they've announced a whole new refresh of their vehicles. So they've got Fiat, Citroen, Peugeot, also got Vauxhall as well, and Opel, their new vans. Sort of a major refresh of all those models. They're all basically the same thing underneath. They've got the e-Berlingo, the e-Doblo, the Combo Electric, e-Partner, and those sort of vehicles. So we've got up to 75 kilowatt on the smallest vans. So the mid-size vans. So it's now 224 miles of range. There's some maximum charging speeds are being increased. So they used to be 50 kilowatt. They're now 150 kilowatt, which is a huge increase. There's improved interiors, different things like that. So they've also got a 400 volt power takeoff for things like engineers and sort of maintenance people. You can now power up drill batteries and things from the vehicle without having to have aftermarket things put in them. But not much to talk about there, just vans really, but some good improvements. And I've seen a lot of these around, especially Royal Mail office near me. They just have electric vans. That's all they have. They don't have any diesel vans anymore. They've got a massive car park, so it's good to see that. And they're using Stellantis vans for that stuff. They don't use Ford because Ford haven't got the e-Custom out yet. So
but I mean, again, like the more competition that comes out in the market, the better everything's going to be, isn't it?
100%.
So it'd be interesting to see how they work out. I think with the electric vans as well, it'll be interesting to see how much. I mean, the first lot of electric vans we've had have had really low range generally, haven't they? But it'd be interesting to see how they perform with a full load on board.
Yeah, should be good. I know some of them. I think the e-Transit Custom when it comes out is going to have a similar load to the diesel version, which is quite impressive. So I'm not sure about the Stellantis ones. They haven't released those figures. I
just wonder if that's going to destroy the range in them or not. But we'll see, won't we?
Yeah. The last thing I want to get to, this was announced literally Friday. Says the Volkswagen ID7 will start from £55,000. This is the very last vehicle I think that Volkswagen have got that's going to have the old ID software system, like the old layout. I think this was in development for ages. It was when the new CEO didn't come in just before we came in, so they had to sort of run with it because they'd already paid for it. Which doesn't give it a good start in life.
No.
But 55 grand, and you get a free charger at home for that. You get 77 kilowatt hour battery pack, same as the existing ID models, 380 miles of range. The interior looks good, but it's still got that, as I mentioned, that very clean look inside with that NAF software system. But we shouldn't knock it before we've seen it though. But going forward, the new vehicles from Volkswagen will be a return to form. Hopefully, that's what the CEO has said. But this is like a big Passat, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, I'm quite surprised about the interior thing because when they did the launch of this, I didn't go to it, but I saw like some video footage and stuff, and no one was they weren't allowed to show any of the interior. So I can't remember where they did the launch, but it was somewhere abroad, and all the great and the good got invited,
Yep.
and no one was allowed to show any interior. And I think they even had someone from VW in the car with them, so they couldn't show you any of the interior. And you sort of think, well, is it because at that point that was still on the table? As it might possibly, like, we've put this in, but do we run with it for the final production version? I can't think of any other, because it's not a new interior. So unless you could see them saying you can't reveal the interior if it was going to be this new amazing thing that no one had ever seen before, and they wanted to do a separate almost launch of their new interior, their new infotainment system, etc. But as they ended up with the original one, to me, it suggests that they'd already put the original one in, and they were trying to decide, do we just scrap this at this stage and come up with something new, or do we say we've invested too much and we hold on to it? And if that's the case, they obviously decided, yeah, we've invested too much and we'll just stick with it.
The other thing I was thinking was that they wanted the focus to be on the design of the outside, because it does look pretty nice. Whereas if they revealed the interior, everyone's media coverage will be just be, oh, it's got the same interior as the ID3, with a bigger screen.
Maybe.
So I'd imagine they probably try to control the narrative a little bit, because it is a stylish car. It's just a shame about the tech inside, but because the rear end looks really good, really stylish. There's going to be a state version, so something to rival the MG5, obviously a little bit bigger than MG5, but it's going to go on sale in a few months' time, January, just over 55 grand, which I'm not sure about the price. It's a lot more than the what is it? The Arteon estate car, and then the Passat as well. They have got a new Passat coming out as well. I'm not sure how that's going to do, but there's definitely a lot of VW electric cars on the market, also on the roads at the moment. I'm seeing, so might do all right, might not.
That Arteon shooting brake's brilliant, by the way.
Yeah,
it's really, really nice. I drove the plug-in hybrid one, and loved it. Massively impressed by it.
Yeah, it's just it's a shame that they've sort of gone from a really, really good place with their combustion cars, and then they've gone a little bit downhill with the EV stuff, and then hopefully with the ID2 in 2025 they'll get back on form, because that new CEO he sounds like he's got the right ideas.
Definitely. Yeah, like he really, really does. And I know after speaking to a few people at VW, they're all like really quite impressed by not just what he's saying, but what he's doing. So yeah, I think certainly the marketing and PR team at VW will be delighted to have him aboard.
Fantastic. That's everything we got for this episode. A bit of a long one here. But yeah, thanks for listening or watching this episode of Charging Status Podcast. You can find us on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. For a full description of this show, visit the episode link in the show notes, and of course, check out those chapters complete with images to make your listening experience much more enjoyable. We also have an ad-free premium version of this show available on Apple Podcasts that will help support this episode and future podcasts from the interface. Jim also has a book out all about used cars. Be sure to check that out, it's a great read. Link is in the show notes and on Jim's website, where I'm an occasional contributor. Thanks again, Jim, for joining me on this show. Where can people find you online?
Probably the best place to go is just to go to my website. It's notaguru.co.uk. And you've got all my social links there. Really good time to follow me on Instagram or Twitter, because I'm going to be posting loads of stuff from LA and Vegas over the next week, and some really interesting stuff. So a few surprises along the way, I think.
Yeah, I look forward to your Vegas shenanigans. You can find the interface at theinterface.uk, and links are in the show notes. Thanks everyone, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.